Hi, Glenys.
Hey, Aaron. What do you want to talk about today?
How much I hate diets.
Yeah, diets suck.
So what do you do instead of a diet?
Intuitive eating. Health at every size.
So how many times have you had to explain intuitive eating and health at every size to someone?
Like 5,000 times. But that was just to my doctor.
Okay, so how many times have you explained it to someone and then they said, but diets are the only thing I know?
That's like every time. Can we pursue health without thinking about weight?
Yes, we can pursue health without thinking about weight.
That's pretty revolutionary, what you just said. But what if you just don't like yourself at the size that you're at?
I think we need to understand why, instead of just saying I need to change.
So, what's the deal with body positivity?
Oh man, that's a long answer. I'm Aaron Flores.
And I'm Glenys Oyston. And we are Dietitians Unplugged.
Hey Glenys, how's it going?
Hey Aaron, how are you? I'm good.
We had
We're
a little
giggling
technical
because, yeah,
we had a trouble getting out of the blocks just now.
Yeah.
But here we are. We're going.
Are you starting? Am I starting? Huh.
We can keep that in.
Yeah.
It's always nice for people to know that we're normal too. We make mistakes.
Super unplugged again.
Super unplugged. Glenys,
Yes, we
it's
do
nice
make
to be back with
mistakes.
you again.
Yeah, it's good to be talking to you.
Yeah, what I sort of like about how our schedule for podcasts right now is we're recording them pretty regularly, so it like gives us, we don't really like chat too much in between episodes.
No.
So now we just come online and we're just sort of like really like it is unplugged. It's like, hey, how's it going? No, how are you? Like, what's new? And so it's like I love catching up with you every time we get to chat.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We should just record all that. It's just like very mundane chit chat. Like, oh, hey, what are you doing? What's going on with you?
I'm
What's
busy.
happening? Yeah, I'm busy. I'm busy too.
Yeah, all right. Been nice talking to you.
And we do it in that voice too, which is, those are our real voices.
Exactly. This is my DJ voice. This is what
Right.
I learned from Ryan Seacrest and Rick Dees and all the.
This is mine, and I can hear everybody thinking, God, that's your recording voice? Oy.
Wow. The inner critic just showed up to our podcast.
Yeah. I mean,
special guest today, Glenys' inner critic.
I'm not the first person who dislikes hearing their voice. So,
No, you're not.
But, I've gotten past it. I mean, it's taken, 4 years, but I've gotten past it.
60
so.
episodes and you're still not used to it.
I'm used to it. I just don't like it.
There you go.
Which is also sometimes my take on body positivity or like body acceptance. You don't have to like it, but it is good to be used to it and accept it and respect it.
Radical acceptance. You have radical
acceptance. Yeah.
Radical acceptance for your voice, right? I love it.
Yeah.
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 Well, again, I think you have the best laugh in podcasts. Like,
Yeah, my laugh's all right. That's fine. That makes me laugh when I listen to it.
I'm just going to go out. I'm going to be bold and just say, like, if you disagree, come at us. That's fine.
So nice of you to say.
But we have the best laugh in podcasts. So
yeah,
take that.
Let's get we're the podcast awards. Let's get a podcast award for that.
Absolutely.
Your laugh's pretty good too.
Well, no,
but you make me laugh. You make me laugh way more than I make you laugh. So I'm just a giggle cookie.
Glenys' new Twitter name.
Giggle cookie.
Giggle cookie. Yeah. I like that one.
Imagine like a big cookie with like a goofy grin drawn on it.
Exactly. So before we get into, by the way, today's episode, we are going to be discussing a recent article in the Telegraph where someone had some interesting comments on Nike's Mannequin that was posted in their London flagship store of a woman in a larger body wearing Nike workout clothes and the whole fallout from that article. So we're going to be talking about that today. But before we get there, Glenys, is there anything you want to sort of mention to our listeners?
I do want to say Rebecca Scritchfield and I are working on our diabetes groups 2.0. So we're working on expanding access by making sort of an online course, and that is also still has the live component where we're speaking to an entire group. But we just found we had so much information to share, and it was such a short period of time for people to sort of imbibe it in and then talk about it that we realized we just need to make this a bit bigger and for more people and just more accessible. But it's not done yet. So we're working on it. And if you can just sign up in the link in the show notes to get early notice of when it's going to be released in the next few months, then you will know about it. I will also, of course, be announcing it on the podcast. But yeah, for now, that's what we're working on. If everybody is wondering where our groups are, they are being developed. So
awesome.
Yeah. How about you? What have you got?
Yeah. So I am starting for all the folks who are listening who are providers, another body trust provider, Rachel Milner, and I are starting a support group that will be held online via Zoom for providers who work with eating disorders but are also struggling with their own eating disorder or disordered eating or body image issues. We realize that there's not a space for folks doing the work to actually get support for themselves. So we are opening up a group that will start on, I believe, Sunday, July 7th, and we'll meet every other week. And it'll probably be ongoing. Hopefully we can get people to sort of continually join, but we're asking people to commit to 6 sessions for $300. So if you are interested, please email me, Aaron Flores, rdn@gmail.com. And by next episode, I will announce what is my next date for my Body Trust men's group that I will be doing in the end of the summer.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I definitely have many people I want to refer to.
Yeah, thank you. And my practice, I still have a few slots. So if you're interested in working with me, please shoot me an email and we can set something up.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, plugs aside, ready to dive into this article?
Yeah, I'm telling you, I don't spend as much time on Facebook as I used to.
Uh-huh.
So I feel like I was already late to the game when I read this. But yeah, so it's an article that appeared in the lifestyle section of the Telegraph,
which is a UK paper, right? Yeah,
UK paper. Yep. Obese mannequins are selling women a dangerous lie. And so the backstory is that Nike in London introduced a plus size clothing line and plus size mannequins as well. And so I'm just looking at the picture, and this person looks like this mannequin looks like a small plus size person, not super small, but like it's plus size, but not very big. So that's because Nike's clothing line only goes up to a 3X, which is not very, that's not all that inclusive, but it's a start, right? And so they unveiled this mannequin, and then Tanya Gold wrote this article and kind of lost her shit about
pretty much, yeah,
about fat people being represented. And she said some really shitty things about fat people in her article to just not put too fine a point on it.
So let's just sort of also just be transparent. She does use some really harsh and negative language and mention and even she uses the word obese a lot. So we're going to be using that word as when it's quoted by her. We won't use it otherwise. But when we are saying that word, it's a direct quote from her article. And also, we might touch on some other quotes that might be a little triggering. So I just wanted to make sure that if folks didn't want to, be exposed to some of her language, maybe just skip this episode and come back for 61 if that's going to be really hard for you to hear.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah. So then there was a lot of backlash, but first to her article. So I just want to read, I just kind of pulled out a few of the quotes that stood out for me in this article. by Tanya Gold. So she starts off, the new Nike Mannequin is not a size 12, which is healthy, or even 16, a hefty weight, yes, but not one to kill a woman. She is immense, gargantuan, vast. She heaves with fat. She is in every measure obese, and she is not readying herself for a run in her shiny Nike gear. She cannot run. She is, more likely, pre-diabetic and on her way to a hip replacement. I almost laughed out loud when I read all that because I was like, are you fucking kidding me? So let's
want to start there.
Go. I just want to, start with, you're a journalist.
Yeah.
This is so please note, this is your opinion and not a very well supported opinion. So I think it's important to say that we can have opinions, but I think it's also equally important to say we should probably back them up. If you're talking about this kind of stuff or any kind of stuff, it's good to have some some evidence for your opinion, right? Otherwise I could say, the sky is actually yellow all the time, right? Like, oh, well, what is your evidence for that? I'm looking at it. It's yellow. It's like, it's not. It's blue by all accounts. Most of the time it's blue. Sometimes it's gray like today. We need some evidence here for what she's saying. And there is none.
Yeah, I feel like there's, especially at the beginning, there's just, it's just so much of actual, and it doesn't, I don't even think this is in the opinion section. I was looking at it. It's in like the lifestyle women section of the paper.
Right.
So, it'd be great if this is opinion piece. It sort of fits. It's definitely all opinion. And some really pretty judgmental weight stigma, opinions or stigmatizing opinions. And, as I read this, I was like, wow, she's like really full of anger and some really like intense hate around fat bodies as I read this article. And you get that like right from the beginning, how she like phrases a lot of these things by even like using words like immense and gargantuan and, saying like more likely that they're pre-diabetic. I mean, it's like, oh my goodness, like she channeled the inner critic of all of my clients who live in larger bodies into one sentence.
Right.
Right. I mean, like,
it turns out their inner critic is actually the outer critic of the world. So,
yeah.
Right. Gee, where did they get these feelings? Right. And so I mean, even putting aside that this is completely stigmatizing, like, she says things like the mannequin is not a size 12, which is healthy. I'm sorry. How do you know that's a healthy size? Like a person with size who's size 12 can be unhealthy. A person size 12 can be healthy. Sizes aren't healthy or unhealthy. They're just sizes. And also size 16, a hefty weight, yes, but not one to kill a woman. It's like, well, I'm sorry. What's the evidence that says that there's a certain weight that kills a person? In fact, when we look at all the evidence available, the large epidemiological studies that they've done around weight, we find that over the people in the, and I'm going to use the language of the study, but the quote unquote overweight and obese people live longer than the normal weight, definitely longer than the underweight categories. And we can actually post a link to that study and that evidence in our show notes. But, you got to at least look at the available evidence to say. And maybe she could say, well, I just don't believe that, which is, I guess, fine to say. But,
what's interesting is, like, I feel like as I read this article, I definitely, like, picked up on her fat shaming language and attitudes. But the other part is, I also like feel like there's parts of the article where she's like almost flip-flopping her argument, and sort of like saying, like justifying why there needs to be a fat acceptance movement, right? Because the next paragraph she's even talking about advertising has always bullied women, but this is something far more insidious. I've watched spindly, starved creature, a child ballet dancer who was for many years the accepted ideal, walking down the Paris runway in so much makeup you could miss the signs of malnutrition. It was an ideal designed to introduce enough self-hatred that women would shop to be rid of it. So, like, she's identifying actually the harm in 99% of the advertising towards women, and even male bodies, right? That there is this ideal that we are meant to fit into, and that if you don't fit into that ideal, there's something wrong with you. And here she is saying like the backlash to that is then saying like, okay, people in larger bodies exist. They're gonna move their bodies. Let's put them in clothes so that they can move their body. And here she is like freaking out at that. Like, I don't know what she wants. Does she just want clothing that's up to a size 10? You know, and like and a 10 and an 8, and that's it.
Yeah, it's a classic thing of like, well, don't be too thin that you're, you know, dangerously underweight and, you know, going to worry us about you. And also don't be too fat because we don't like that either. You know, it's like, well, you're just setting up this situation in which, once again, women and the population at large cannot please anybody. And that's not what this is about. This is Nike simply saying, here's clothing for larger bodies. If you want to exercise in this clothing or do whatever you want in this clothing,
let's be honest,
here
right?
it is.
Nike is not, I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot of altruism in their choice. You know, they're a market need, right? They're responding to this movement of people who are buying clothes that need, you know, that want to move their body. I mean, like, they wouldn't be doing it for any other reason.
Right. And if you're going by the statistics that are quoted that, you know, 60% of people are in either the, again, just, you know, let's just say 60% of people are fat in some varying degree of fatness, then, you know, you'd be an idiot not to make clothing for them. You know, if you wanted to expand your market into all of the people, like, you would just make a lot more sizes. That's just good business sense.
Yeah.
You know?
And, you know, so, you know, there's this other quote that I sort of feel like I wish if she wrote it and then stopped, it would be great. And it's this first line of another paragraph where she writes, "I would never want a woman to hate herself for what she finds in the looking glass, period." She goes on with a but. Right. Just stop. That's great.
Stop there, Tanya.
That's enough.
Stop. Stop there.
Because, you know, she goes on to sort of say like, you know, but if you like this idea of like having control over your body, right? You first have to know it. And like, you know, I'm like, Tanya, like, what do you expect? Like, that someone is like in a larger body, it works out in the privacy of their own home until they're like a size acceptable to you, and then they're allowed to come out and don workout clothes and work out. Like,
I almost thought she was saying like, don't exercise at this size. First, you must shrink yourself before you're allowed to exercise. It was her argument's not making any sense. You know, like if you, and everybody has pointed this inconsistency out, like, well, if you're so, like, let's say if we buy her worldview that fatness is a behavior and not just a size, that it's something that you need to fix. Like if we buy, let's just pretend for a minute we buy her worldview, then the first thing a lot of people would say was, well, if you need to, you know, want to be healthier, you would exercise. Like, but her problem is that the body exists in the first place.
Right.
And is being seen in exercise gear. It's like, that's completely, that's
literally
batshit crazy, Tanya. You know, like, like, it doesn't, her argument is making no sense. It's just kind of mind-boggling. And then, so if you read down in the article, this is where I started to get a little red flag come up, and then I did some more research. But what she said is, what is obesity? I would say, as a recovering addict myself, that it is most often, but not always, an addiction to sugars and a response to sadness. And as with all addictions, the only person who can save you is yourself. And I thought, well, what an interesting and telling quote. She's an addict. What does that mean? And I wanted to do some research on that. But before I get to that, just talking about like, what is obesity? She's saying obesity is a behavior, essentially. Which we do not believe that it is. And so there we diverge,
Yeah.
right? On one more point. And I think what she's doing is possibly using her own experience and
I
projecting
totally
that
agree.
to everybody.
And there's this other part of like, simplifying, like it's so oversimplifying that like if you are in a larger body, that the reason must be either you're incredibly sad, right? And like addicted to sugar. Like, and that's like really big pile of steamy bullshit. That like to boil something into like such simplistic terms, I think diminishes the experience of so many folks who are in larger bodies for a myriad of reasons. And I don't know. I when I read that, I just like, wow, that is like so reductive and like probably something that would, to me, like in 2019 to read that, and I guess living in the fat acceptance bubble that I live in is so, I don't know, it seems like something that would be written in like 1980 and not 2019.
Right. It's some like when I was a kid, I found a book that my mother had, and it was written by some minor celebrity at the time. Like, and it was basically, I don't remember the title. It was like How to Please a Man. And I remember reading it and just being like, weird, like, here's all this advice about how you should just be completely, not yourself and to please somebody else. And of course, my inner child rebel was like, of course, a little bit sticks too, right? So it's just like the chipping away of our real selves. But that's what this advice sounds like. It's 1962, like, how dare you be fat? It did seem super old fashioned when I read it. So when she said she was a recovering addict, I thought, well, what kind of addiction did she have? So I wanted to do a little bit more digging, and I started reading more of her articles. And it turns out Tanya Gold has an eating disorder. It sounded like she started out with binge eating disorder, and that at some point it morphed into bulimia. And then she got some help. She got some hypnotherapy help, which I guess helped her quite a bit. Don't know where she is in that place in her recovery, but she has written a lot about her self-loathing and her disgust for her own body. And so we know like what's going on here is a lot of internalized weight stigma.
Absolutely.
And that's sad. But she needs to know it, and that her experience isn't everybody's experience.
No, totally. And it's I think there's a lot of this sound. When I read this, it sort of feels almost like a therapy session that she just wrote out, right? Sort of like, this is all of my biases and misgivings, and I'm just going to throw it all out here on the page and see what people think. And what's interesting is like, I think there's been some really interesting commentary on this about why, like, sort of taking her to task like we are for what she wrote.
Right. And she's not in a small body. Right. And I don't know if she is right now, but she has not been in a small body in the past. So this does strike me as like the fat loathing of somebody who used to be in a body that they were super uncomfortable with and somehow managed to shrink themselves. So I don't know if she's thin now or smaller or what the deal is, but it's the kind of rage I think is just that can only burn from internalized
for sure
weight stigma.
So, there has been a fair amount of backlash towards this article. One of the places that I think really sort of did a good job of summarizing all of that was an article on Huffington Post that was by Jamie Feldman. And basically the article is called Telegraph's Fatphobic Take on Nike's Plus Size Mannequins Receives Backlash. Don't read the article. Read responses from Roxane Gay, Jamila Jamil, and countless others instead. And I would probably say that that's pretty good advice. We've summarized a good portion of the article. You don't have to go through and read it now. Maybe focus on some of the responses that people have posted because they're really quite good.
Right. And also, actually, I think what alerted me to this was I get Reagan Chastain's Dances with Fat blog posts emailed to me as a subscriber. And she, as usual, she nailed it with her perfect humor. And I just want to read one of the things she said because I did think like this sums it up. She wrote, "Promoting obesity is not a real thing. Wait, Nike is making a small group of styles and colors of their workout clothes and plus sizes and displaying them on mannequins? I'm totally getting fat," said absolutely nobody ever. I think that's a great counter to this article, which is saying, if you show fat people, everybody will want to get fat. It's like, that's not, I don't think that's not a thing. Like, I don't, maybe people might be like, oh, I can actually be the body I'm meant to be in, you know? Like, certainly when I see representation, I'm like, oh, good. That's just affirmation that I get to be in the body size that I'm in, and I'm going to have things available to me. And I'm lucky because I'm on the smaller end of the plus size range. So it's just ridiculous, this idea of promoting obesity, and I laugh at it every single time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of my favorite responses was from Michelle Allison, who tweets under The Fat Nutritionist. And her tweet was, in response to this, was, Fatphobia yells at us, "You should get some exercise," and then ensures that there is no exercise equipment rated to our safety above a certain weight. There is no road we can walk down without being shouted out. There is precious little activewear, and only very recently. And that's highlighting exactly like the sort of like, you want me to do this, but then like, what the hell? And I think Michelle did a great job of saying that.
Right, exactly. It's, again, the ridiculousness of the argument. And I want to read what Roxane Gay said because it's fabulous. "I work out 6 days a week. I am fat. I wear workout clothes while working out. The world continues to turn. Shut up."
It's all just
Shut
pretty basic.
up.
Yeah, just shut up. Yeah.
Yeah. But people are outraged, but I'm happy for this to bubble up to the surface. Not happy, but I'm glad that this is able to bubble up to the surface because we need to still see how people are thinking, right? Like, we just can't say, like, because nobody's allowed to say anything, that it's just gone away. Like, I think it's important for this to come up so we can talk about it and talk about what's so wrong. And, just never mind the stigmatizing, horrible meanness of it. Like, your opinion is fairly unfounded, right? Like, if you're a journalist, be a journalist and look up some facts and do some research on this stuff. And I know it's just a little throwaway piece in women's lifestyle, and God forbid we actually put some research into something for women. But, at this point, we're kind of requesting that.
Yeah. And I agree with you. Like, a lot of people will say, but no one's really saying this out loud. I mean, here it is. Like, people are going to say this out loud, if not think it. So let's have it come out. Let's be able to talk about it. What I think is going to be missing from this is the education of Tanya Gold, right? I mean, I think that's what we will miss is her actually probably hearing some of this, right? And doing, hopefully, maybe I'm wrong, but like doing the work to sort of see why this is so problematic and incorrect. That's my hope, is as soon as there is discourse, is that people can sort of learn from it and do better. I don't know if that will happen.
Right. And I kind of don't care if she does, but I mean, I feel bad enough for her if she has an eating disorder that's not really being appropriately treated, which to me, it might sound like it, but I don't know enough about her personal life to know, only based on what she's written. It sounds to me like she's gotten no support for her body through her eating disorder treatment, such as it is. The other side of it is like, just don't write untrue things. Because some of the stuff she wrote is just blatantly untrue. And that's to me why I kind of just like shook my head at it. Like, yeah, that's not, just because somebody's in a larger body doesn't mean they're unhealthy. And show me the evidence that people are dropping dead of fat in the street. It's not happening. And show me the evidence where it's good to not give larger people clothing that fits so they can exercise in. Show me that evidence that that's actually bad for people.
Yeah.
you know? So again, well, that can be your opinion, but you know, from a journalist and from most people, I require you to back that up a little bit.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. So,
I think, I don't know. I feel like we've given enough time to Tanya Gold in her article.
Yeah. Yeah. You're done, Tanya.
You're done. Yeah.
Hope you do some exploration, but if not, I don't care. Won't be reading you.
There you go.
So
yeah. Well, yeah. I can only read one Telegraph article a day. It looks like, because I had to register to read the whole article. So I know
I did too.
So unfortunately,
the things we do, for our listeners.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We register so you don't have to.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed our take on this. We've given you a few episodes recently of a lot of opinions, so I hope you're enjoying hearing our take on all of these things related to fat acceptance, health at every size, and intuitive eating, because I think it's nice to be able to process them with you, Glenys, and I think we get to hear some interesting ideas as we do it.
Happy to bust some myths today and some bullshit opinion.
Yeah. So we'll be back for another episode very shortly. So stay tuned, and thanks for listening, everybody.